Hello, everybody. Thank you for spending the early morning with me, the first session of the day. Very excited to get to meet everybody, hear your questions, and share our story with you as well. So I'm going to be talking about, or this is me. I'm Ashley Parks. I'm a senior DevOps engineer at Toyota Connected. I've been at Toyota Connected for about 6.5 years, so a pretty long time. I'm also a Datadog ambassador. I have been for the past 2 years, so if you have any general Datadog questions, I might be able to answer them for you. And so this is what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be sharing a little bit about Toyota Connected and how we differ from Toyota North America, and also how we share philosophy with them. And then I'm going to dive into Datadog. I'm going to talk about how we're able to create monitors at scale as we've grown over the past lifetime of our services, how we ensure that our monitors are still valid after the past 6 years, and some cool features we've added to incident management so that we are always stable and up and resolve incidents as quickly as possible. So first of all, Toyota Connected, actually, how many of you drive Toyotas, not just cars in general? Cool. I drive a Prius. The new ones look super cool. I call mine Spaceship. So Toyota Connected is a separate company from Toyota Motors North America. We're both in Dallas, but we are like 3 minutes down the road from them in a really cool little office. We have about 400 employees, but people at Toyota Connected, we hang out with people at Toyota Motors North America. We get access to their office. We get to meet them, collaborate with them on different projects. Toyota Connected is more of like the software arm of Toyota, so we do some cool stuff with the CAN bus in the car, which is where all the sensors talk to the vehicle. We also just announced some new head unit design, so if you saw some news like 2 weeks ago, there's a new UX UI in the vehicles. My company designed that for us, and some other cool connected car technologies. I'm on a project called DriveLink. If you go out and buy a car, this is called Safety Connect, when you go and see all the specs of your car. It is a safety services platform. We launched in 2019. This is my third talk at Datadog. My very first one, I talked about how we launched this platform using Datadog to ensure that there were no downtimes when we were launching. So we have a couple different safety services that we provide to our customers. The first two are automatic collision notification, ACN. We have SOS, which is the button that's in the car. You've probably seen it, it's right above. You might have seen the video that Dave gave yesterday where somebody's pressing the button. So both of those communicate through a device called a DCM, which is basically kind of like a cell phone in your vehicle. There's a SIM card. It's able to send a voice call to our call center as well as send us data about the vehicle. So we can tell if there was an accident, where the impact was, possibly how many people are in the vehicle, as well as talk to the person in the car at the same time to help get them emergency response as quickly as possible. We also do stolen vehicle locator, which doesn't necessarily mean that the vehicle was stolen, but as long as we have a police report, we're able to start live tracking that vehicle. So it could be a stolen vehicle, could be an Amber Alert, could be a Silver Alert, but we're able to live track that vehicle, get police there as quickly as possible. And finally, we do something that's not really safety related, but still uses our DCM called Destination Assist, where we're able to talk to our customers, get them a point of interest on their head unit in their car through a live person or a robot, either one. So now I'm going to play a video for you guys so you hear the impact of our services.
Safety Connect for class and then we receive an emergency notification for emergency help. Hello? 911, what is the address of your emergency? Hi, yes, this is Monique with Toyota Emergency Services. We just received an automatic collision notification at 1404 IL 13. We got officers going to this area. Thank you.
We have received an emergency notification for the vehicle. How may we help?
We just hit the guardrail.
Do you need to send police and ambulance truck?
Absolutely.
That is more than a stolen vehicle. This person just had a stroke and has dementia and left it in the vehicle, and they're really concerned for his safety and the safety of others.
Yes. We're doing what I call live tracking, so we have the location second by second.
This is on County calling. I have safety men on the phone, and they're doing a live track of the vehicle.
Yes.
What's the most current?
Okay, the most current now is showing at 100 Houston Street in Hoka.
Okay, they've got to stop.
Great.
So it's always really awesome for me to hear the impact that we have on our customers. We get to hear calls at every sprint review to just remind us of what the work we're doing and how it impacts the society as a whole. There's more seats over here if you want to come sit. So just to show you, so as I said, we launched in 2019. So this is DriveLink by the numbers over the past 6 years. We've had 12.5 million vehicles activated in our system. We've had 5.5 million total calls. Of those 5.5 million, 550,000 were safety related. So that could have been people getting in an accident or pressing the SOS button. And 35,000 were vehicle tracking requests. So now let's talk a little bit about Toyota philosophy in general. So have any of you heard of Toyota Production System before? Yeah? Cool. So Toyota Production System was created by Sakichi Toyoda-san way back at the beginning of Toyota. Fun fact, Toyota started out as a loom company, and he created this philosophy as he was trying to perfect his mother's loom business, loom-like fabric making. And he created it as a way to make things more efficient, more effective, and reduce waste. So I'm gonna highlight Kaizen, which means continuous improvement. We're always looking of ways to continuously improve our platform and just Toyota Connected as a whole. This could be through upgrading our system, making sure everything's up to date, has up-to-date certificates, security, or it could be evaluating new architecture, new tools for things. And so today I'm going to share some of the ways that we've Kaizened our system over the past couple years relating to Datadog and monitoring. So the first way is by making sure that your monitors are able to scale as you grow your business. And for me, this is a pretty simple way. So we've created a global monitoring suite in our Terraform. So we have global monitors, we have monitors specific to Australia, and monitors specific to North America. Most of them roll into the global monitoring system. So this is basically just global metrics that every single service in our platform will send. So for this one, an example, we use RabbitMQ so our microservices can talk to each other. So this is just a way that you can easily group them by customer and environment because every monitor or every service that we have will send this metric because they all talk to Rabbit. So if somebody deploys a new service or clones one and deploys it on Australia, it'll automatically send this metric, and so it's already covered by Datadog. Any new service that gets deployed, it'll be rolled inside of this monitor. It's pretty simple, but always make sure that you include your grouping in the title of the monitor so whoever's looking at your Slack channel or whatever you send your monitors will be able to know which team to get involved in. Building on top of that, so since all of our monitors are in Terraform, we made this really cool giant if statement so that we can tell which Slack channel to send the monitors to. And the developers don't need to do any thinking about this at all. They just include the Terraform variable when they're making a new monitor, or if they're copying and pasting one from before, it'll already be included and send things to the correct Slack channel. So if you can read that, the beginning of it is everything that's North America, team A means North America, and then we separate out our production and non-production alerts so that the non-production alerts don't make our channel as noisy, and then they can track different monitors going off in the different regions. Also, something super easy to include is your priority. So when you're making a monitor, make sure that you tell people how important this monitor is. So there's P1, P2, P3, P4. P1 means very bad. So we have a couple P1 monitors that we've created that'll just automatically page our infrastructure team and go bypass the whole support process. So like if we see that a node is down, it'll just automatically page us so we can resolve that as quickly as possible. Also, always include a run book. Always, always, always. This is useful for either humans looking at your monitor or if Bits is looking at it. As you saw yesterday, Bits can start doing on-call things now, but it needs to know what to do. So you need to tell it, or a human, the steps to follow when a monitor goes off. Otherwise, a monitor will go off and people will probably just ignore it because they don't know what it means or how to fix it. So now let's talk about how we're able to make sure that our monitors are valid. So we do this two ways. We have bi-weekly monitor review meetings with our developers, and then we do quarterly game days. So at this monitor review meeting, Datadog provides a super easy out-of-the-box dashboard whenever you make any monitors using the monitoring platform called the Monitor Notifications Overview. And this shows you a whole bunch of graphs and dashboards, tables, to help show you what is happening in your system. How many monitors are going off, what Slack channel they're going to, and how many times monitors have triggered. So we always highlight that one graph that shows the top triggering monitors since the last meeting, so we can see this one has gone off 5,000 times. Why? So we see if we need to reevaluate the threshold, if it's not important at all and we can just delete it, or other things like that. We also check out any monitors that are just hanging out in alert state. This could mean the metric went bad or it's not sending data anymore, and it can just be cleaned up usually. And then also, there's a quality tab on the monitor screen, which shows you any monitors that don't have any notifications attached to them. So they're not being sent to any like Slack channels, any emails, anything at all. Probably means somebody was testing something out, and you can just delete that as well. And finally, if we have time, which usually we don't, but if we do have time, we'll talk about if anything has happened in the past couple weeks that we might need a new monitor for. This is usually something you'll talk about in your RCA, but it's nice to just have that little brainstorming session each time. And all these things are really easy ways to Kaizen your system and make sure that that Slack channel isn't crazy noisy and people just start muting it. Yeah, once a sprint. We have 2-week sprints. Yeah, so in that if statement I showed, we have non-production alert Slack channel and a production one. So if there's something that's triggering a lot in the non-production alert, we'll bring it up, but a lot of times they'll be like, oh, we're still testing that out, or it's still learning the anomaly threshold or something like that, so we usually just ignore those. But yeah, because in that dashboard, you can filter which Slack channel it's going to. So another thing we do is we have quarterly game days. Do you guys know what chaos engineering is? Cool, very important. So if you don't, chaos engineering is where you break something in non-production on purpose. So it could be bringing down a node, taking down a region in AWS, and seeing how your system responds, seeing if you have resiliency built up in your infrastructure, or if your Java services or whatever language it's in are able to reconnect to things. This is an easy way to ease on-call anxiety. So as you scale and new team members join your team, or there's new services that are joining, you'll be able to get them in on the process and also test out their paging flow, make sure that their phones actually go off if something bad happens. It helps reduce friction between teams, because I know sometimes, especially post-COVID or during COVID, we didn't really see each other in person and know who people were. So this is an easy way to have a fun little get-together, talk to your other teammates, people on other teams, and know what to do in case of an incident. Helps identify points of failure. If you break something, very likely that something else in your system will start throwing errors and breaking as well. It also helps test existing software. So like if Java starts throwing oh no, I can't reconnect, you'll be able to know about that and see if there's like a newer version of that service or a newer dependency you can add to fix that. And also make sure that your Datadog monitors actually go off. If you're running a game day and no Datadog monitors go off, something is not correct. Either your Datadog monitors aren't set up correctly, or your game day didn't actually break anything, but you thought it did. And also, it's just team building. Get to hang out with your teammates, talk to them, have like a little fun game to do. So yeah. And then this is my favorite part, incident management and workflows. I love workflows so much. They're so easy to create, and it's just a cool way to iterate and think and brainstorm new ways to help your system. So if you're creating a new incident management process for the very first time, or you're thinking about how to freshen it up, especially with the cool stuff they announced yesterday, these are some of the questions that you'll want to ask yourself and your teammates when you're creating your process. First of all, who's going to respond to the monitors that go off in Slack? Because I guarantee you some people have it muted, so you need to know who's supposed to be looking at it. What steps are they going to do when a monitor goes off? At what point do they need to page people? And then what happens, so you start your incident, then what happens? Like, are people just like, what do I do now? So you need to figure out what like the first step is when an incident is created. And then what happens if an incident takes a really long time? Like, what if it's 8 hours? Or what if it's 3 days? Like, what is your process with your team? And then finally, what do you do once your incident is over? Because please don't just close your incident and move on. It's like, it's the next day. You need to think about how to improve your system afterwards. So our process, we have a level 1 support team. They're named Tech Ops. They're always looking at our monitor channel, looking at tickets that come in from Toyota Motors North America, and making sure that we are handling everything that might be an issue. They're going to follow the runbook listed on the monitor, which you need to have on all of your monitors. And then they'll page the engineering teams when they reach the end of the runbook, or if there's a ton of monitors going off at the same time, I guarantee you that means something really bad is going on. So they should just go ahead and start paging people if there's a lot of stuff happening in your Slack channel. And then what happens when your incident is started? I'm going to show you in a few slides what a really cool workflow we've created. just to help speed up that process and get you going on an incident. And then if an incident takes a really long time, we have a working agreement on our team that every 4 hours we're going to transition to the next person on call. So every week we have a primary and a secondary person on call. If it's a really long running incident, we'll just start going through the rest of the team. And then once an incident is over, we will have a post-mortem that's generated by Datadog Incident Management. We set up a template, so it'll have the 5 whys framework in there. And we'll just start throwing the timeline into that document. And then we'll have a meeting, a retrospective about what went wrong. There's no blame involved, never. But just like what happened, what monitors went off, is there any way we can improve? Are there any new monitors we need to create? Very important meeting to do once your incident is over and resolved. So now let's talk about the cool workflows we've made. So the first one is our incident created workflow. So when you start an incident in Datadog, it does do a couple things automatically. These are just additional features that we created custom through a Datadog workflow. So first of all, we're going to notify some separate Slack channels that there's an incident happening. And if you want to join it, here's the link to the Slack channel of the incident. We're going to try and identify if there have been any releases in the past day, because since we're agile and we are microservices, the developers can deploy things pretty much whenever they want. So just trying to see if there's been anything that's changed in our environment recently that might have triggered this incident. And then we're going to trigger some automated synthetic tests and post the results of those to the Slack channel. We're going to remind our test team to run tests on our physical devices that we have. So we have some cool devices at our office where you can press buttons on them and it acts as a real vehicle. They're real vehicles provisioned in our system, but they're test devices. So they can ensure that there's no customer impact. Because a lot of times we'll have some like smaller incidents related to latency or something that don't have any actual impact on the customer, but if they remain happening for like several hours, it might occur. So we just have them test those devices and make sure that there's nothing happening. And then we're going to add whatever service is having an issue. We're going to add those engineers to the Slack channel and ask if they need to be paged. Because if it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're probably just around. But if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, they're probably not. So ask if they need to be paged via pager duty. And then if it's a high priority incident, we'll add managers and our director to the Slack channel just so everybody's aware that something is going on. And then we have a smaller workflow that runs in the background for, I think 24 hours is the max you can run a workflow right now. So it'll run for 24 hours. For every hour, it'll remind testers to run tests on those devices to just ensure that there's still no customer impact. And then every 4 hours, tell engineers to rotate, go take a nap. And just to show you how massive this workflow is, I have some screenshots here. So each of the branches on it are the things that I've talked about. I'll see people taking pictures. I'll wait a second. And then we have, this is the incident alive one where there's some loops in there. Cool. And that's all I had to talk about today. There's my LinkedIn link and our Toyota Connected Careers page. Also, if you haven't checked us out, we have a Camry in the Expo Hall, and pretty much my whole team is here. So we'd love to answer any questions you have at the booth. So, does anybody have any questions here? Yeah, I think there's a mic right there if you want to go.
Yeah, we got mics on each side. Please come up to a mic so everyone can hear your question, and it'll then also make it onto the recording. And if you are having trouble getting to the mic, flag me down and I will throw this microphone at you.
You talked about the bi-weekly check-ins that you have with engineering teams,
Yeah.
and then the primary and secondary rotations for the support teams. What's the size of your team that's doing these audits, and how many teams are you touching, and how did you guys scale that appropriately if you had any challenges on both sides?
Yeah, good question. So my team, there are 5 of us. So there's 5 of us on the dev team. DriveLink as a whole, I think there's about 60 people. So there's 3 development teams. And so during that bi-weekly incident or bi-weekly monitor meeting, we have whoever's on call for each of those teams join, as well as sometimes product owners like to come and listen as well if there's spinning up a new service and want to make sure that their new monitors in the staging channel aren't freaking out. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, actually run a wholesale central station for monitoring. So
Cool.
wondering how you deal with real world situations that cause a flood of signal traffic to come in that may then set off alerts. How do you figure out that that is a real world event? Like for us, it could be like an earthquake in California versus a problem with your systems.
Good question. So we front all of our traffic with Cloudflare for our public traffic, and then all the private vehicle network goes through a private DNS that we have. So usually we're able to filter out IPs that we aren't expecting. So we are very protected against like DDoS scenarios. If it's some kind of bulk, like a ship comes onto port and all those vehicles get activated all at once, those usually happen at the same time every day. So we have a system in place where our HPAs will scale up. So we have more pods on our activation platform, and then they'll scale back down at like 9 a.m.
And then just second question regarding your engineering, the incident management.
Yeah.
We always have a challenge in scaling back the engineers. We always wind up pulling too many people into the call.
Okay.
And I was curious, like I was interested, I saw that you rotate every 4 hours. I was curious if you had a similar issue where if you have to thin out at times during an incident.
So our team is only 5 people, so we really don't have that issue. But usually if an incident is happening during the day, we all kind of like to swarm and help out. I'm sorry, we don't really have that problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi.
Ashley.
Hey.
Sorry.
Oh,
hi,
yeah, over here. Hi.
Hi, Ashley. My name is Ashish. I'm from Panasonic Avionics Corporation. I have a question. So very nice to hear what you've done, but you're part of a DevOps team. So are you also doing feature development? And if you're doing feature development, obviously typically agile teams keep some percentage of time available during each PI for incident management and operational support and efficiency gains. So how do you balance your time, and what is your breakthrough on a percentage of break of feature development versus also doing incident management as a DevOps team?
Good question. So we do new features, and we do a whole bunch, like right now we're in a very proof of concept heavy couple sprints. So we'll have, most of the team is doing proof of concepts and evaluating new frameworks, but we also, whoever is on call for that week, the primary and secondary, part of their job for that week is to look and see if there's any questions that the developers send, or if there's an incident, they're supposed to just drop everything and work on that incident. So that's just a working agreement that we have with our team. So since we are agile and we pick up stories, usually if you're on call, your velocity won't be as large as everybody else for that week, but we know that's just part of being on call.
Just a following question to that. Mm-hmm. So 5 people and 2 people on call. So 2 people don't do feature development out of those 5 in a given sprint?
They still do. We really don't have many incidents. So they'll still do probably like 1 or 2 stories the whole sprint. And they'll just, like, we're building a fun little AI Slack bot to help answer like some low-level questions that the developers have to try and give some more time back to our team to be able to work on real stories in the sprint. But if there's some kind of complicated question or somebody needs weird access to something, they'll help out.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey.
How do you perform the rotation after the 4 hours? Because it's supposed that the on-call engineering already did some troubleshooting and try several things. And the new one need to get the context. Do you have some procedure?
So as announced in Datadog yesterday, so Bits does a summary. So when somebody first joins that Slack channel, it'll look at the previous Slack messages and make a little AI summary of what has occurred. We also do a little handoff before each time. So if we rotate, the person that was on call previously will hang around and explain what happened, jump in a Slack huddle, tell them what steps they ran, copy paste any commands they might need into Slack so that they can run those later on.
Perfect.
Hey, I had a question on your monitoring prioritization. So really interested in that. We basically have 2 priorities at our company, like on call, on fire, and ignore, or hopefully I have time to look at it later.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in like what your prioritization process looks like. Do you guys have like a consistent way across all the different developers to kind of like categorize those priorities, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so our level 1 support team, they've kind of taken that on as like their job is to figure out what monitors are important and what aren't. So they recently got onboarded a couple months ago, and that's what they've been figuring out. And so they'll hound the developers if they see a monitor going off a lot. They'll be like, hey, we talked about this last week. Can you guys fix this? So they'll add stories to the developer's backlog to try and help identify if there was an issue or if there's like a specific vehicle that's doing something funky and making our monitors go off. But usually you can identify really quickly which ones are this is really bad. So I agree, the P1s are pretty obvious to find. The P2s and P3s are kind of iffy. Usually for us, it's if there's anything that might have customer impact, it's a P1 or a P2.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi Ashley, this is Jyotsna.
Hi.
I'm from Allstate.
Cool.
So I have a couple of questions. I would like to hear more about the postmortem process. Like once you figure out what caused that incident, how do you convert that to a real tech debt story? or any guidelines to be shared with the app teams or the engineers?
Yeah, so we follow the five whys framework, where when an incident goes off, you say why 5 times. So you're like, there was latency. Why was there latency? Oh, the database was running slow. Why was the database running slow? Because this query is new and doesn't have an index on it. And so you just go down and try and dig into the real root cause of the issue. And then once you identify that, you try and make a story in your backlog, or if it's something like really easy to fix, go ahead and fix it right then. And then you'll also think about any monitors that can be in place to catch this issue earlier. So if it was some kind of database issue, is there any like new monitors we can add on the database to tell you that this is happening before it becomes an actual incident?
So you mean all the 5 whys are part of observability?
They're part of the postmortem document.
Postmortem documents, okay. And what are your strategies in partnering with Datadog on observability patterns?
Yeah, so we use the Datadog incident management platform a lot. So their incident management tooling will generate a postmortem document for you based on different chatter that's been in the Slack channel or the monitors that were linked to the incident. So it'll automatically get that document started for you. You just need to go in there yourself and kind of think about what happened.
So all this is part of your sprint planning or the upcoming sprints?
The incidents just kind of happen when they happen. They aren't really a sprint, like you don't schedule them, yeah.
But it impacts the priorities, right? Like the feature development and the timelines.
Oh, like if you identify things that were broken that you can fix. Yeah, so once that happens, we'll make a JIRA story and put it in the development team's backlog, and they'll prioritize it. If it was an incident, it usually gets prioritized into the next sprint to be worked on really quickly.
Throughout this incident process, how is product involved, product owners?
Product owners, they're pretty involved because they're who's going to be in charge of knocking things out of priority if an incident comes in place.
But not in the analysis or solutioning or documenting anything?
They are, yeah. So if it's something related to a new vehicle feature that went out that created an incident, like say somebody on their team deployed a new release, they'll be in there involved in why did this happen? Was it something related to the new feature that we're creating? So they're just in there constantly thinking about product-wise brain things, yeah.
Missing requirement. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Hey.
Hi. Firstly, thank you. I'm from Super America, developer there, so this is very relevant to me. So my question was for your quarterly game days. How do you decide what to break? Like, what's the strategy behind that?
That's a good question. Usually it's something that might have the widest impact to our services. So an example, we broke RabbitMQ and saw if the services were able to reconnect if we like took down a node in a RabbitMQ cluster. So from the DevOps team when we're doing things, we try and make it as wide-reaching as possible. For developers, they're usually going to try and test a new feature or a new library that they're using in their code.
So it's usually just taking down like a whole service. It's not like, do you ever like, let's simulate increasing latency by a bunch or stuff like that?
Yeah, or seeing what happens if one of our third-party vendors goes down, like black holing their URL, seeing what happens. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Janil from Wayfair.
Hi.
How are you quantifying your incidents? Like, is it impact versus urgency, or it's how are you marking them as a P1 or a P2? Like, can you throw some examples at Toyota on what exactly defines as a P1 versus a P2?
So a P1 would be anything that impacts customers. Okay. So an example would be if Salesforce, which is what our call center agents use, if there's something wrong in Salesforce and the call center agents aren't able to provide the amount of services that we want them to provide, that'd be a P1. A P2 would be something less important. So destination assist, since it's not a safety service, if it's like having some latency, it still impacts customers because it takes longer to send the point of interest to their cars, but it's not a safety service. So it'd probably be like P2, maybe P1. Yeah.
Okay. And all these incidents are created in Datadog at this point, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
One question for you.
Go for it.
What is your team working on next? You've got a lot of cool stuff already, but you're trying to keep improving. Kaizen.
Of course. So on the DevOps team, we're evaluating new security frameworks to add in, just to try and always be as secure as possible. So we're evaluating new API-YAM services. Also, with each generation of vehicles, we have access to new sensors in the car. So integrating those sensors with what our call center agents are able to talk to the vehicle occupant about. For example, the newest generation of vehicles, we're able to see how many seatbelts were buckled. So we're able to possibly tell how many occupants are in the car, so that call center agent is able to tell emergency responders how many ambulances they might need to send to the scene. So anything that might help safety-wise with our customers.
Please give Ashley a big round of applause. Thank you all for joining.